10 years, the Greeks had tried to break the walls of Troy. They had sent armies, they had burned villages, they had buried kings, brothers, and sons, but Troy was still standing. Then one morning, the Trojan guards looked outside the city, and the Greek army was gone. Their ships had disappeared from the shore, their camps were empty. The war, it seemed, was finally over. The people of Troy celebrated. They opened their gates, they walked across the abandoned battlefield, and there, alone in the sand, they found a gigantic wooden horse. A gift, they were told, an offering left behind by a defeated enemy. Some Trojans wanted to burn it, some wanted to throw it into the sea. One priest warned them not to trust it. One woman screamed that soldiers were hiding inside, but no one listened. Because after 10 years of fear, people did not want another warning. They wanted the war to be over. So they pulled the horse through the gates. They dragged it past the walls the Greeks had never been able to cross. And that night, the city drank. It sang. It celebrated its survival. But inside the wooden horse, Greek soldiers were waiting in complete silence. They could hear the music outside. They could hear the Trojans laughing. They could hear the city celebrating its own destruction. Troy had survived 10 years of war. Then, in a single night, it opened its own gates to the enemy. But no war begins with a wooden horse. And the Trojan War did not begin with an army. It began at a wedding. Years before the walls of Troy were covered in blood, the gods gathered to celebrate the marriage of Peleus, a mortal king, and Thetis, a sea goddess. Every important god had been invited. Every god except one, Eris, the goddess of conflict and discord. The gods knew what happened when Eris entered a room, so they left her name off the invitation. They believed that excluding the goddess of conflict would prevent conflict. It did not. Eris arrived at the celebration carrying a golden apple. She did not shout. She did not attack anyone. She simply threw the apple among the guests and left. Written across it were 4 words: "For the most beautiful." 3 goddesses immediately claimed it: Hera, queen of the gods; Athena, goddess of wisdom and war; and Aphrodite, goddess of love and desire. None of them was willing to step aside, and no god was foolish enough to choose between them, not even Zeus. So Zeus gave the decision to a human, a young Trojan prince named Paris. But Paris had not grown up inside the royal palace. When he was born, his mother dreamed that she had given birth to a flaming torch. In the dream, the fire spread through the city and burned Troy to the ground. The warning was clear. This child would bring destruction. The king ordered the infant to be taken away and left to die. But Paris survived. A shepherd found him, raised him, and for years the prince lived without knowing that royal blood ran through his veins. Until the gods came looking for someone to make an impossible choice. Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite stood before Paris, but they did not ask him to judge them fairly. They tried to buy his decision. Hera promised him political power. She offered to make him ruler over great kingdoms. Athena promised him wisdom and victory in war. She offered to make him one of the greatest warriors the world had ever known. Then Aphrodite made a different offer. She promised him the most beautiful woman alive. Her name was Helen. Paris chose Aphrodite. He chose desire over power, desire over wisdom, and perhaps, without understanding it, desire over the survival of his own city. But there was a problem. Helen was not waiting for him. She was already married. Her husband was Menelaus, king of Sparta. And Helen was not simply a beautiful woman. Her marriage was protected by an oath made by some of the most powerful men in Greece. Years earlier, kings and princes from across the Greek world had competed to marry her. Helen's father feared that choosing one man would turn all the others into enemies. So he demanded a promise. Every rejected suitor had to swear that he would defend Helen's marriage, no matter who was chosen as her husband. They agreed. At the time, it seemed like a clever solution. Years later, that oath would summon an army. Paris traveled to Sparta as a guest. Menelaus welcomed him into his home. He fed him. He gave him shelter. He treated him as an honored prince. Then Menelaus left Sparta for a funeral. And while he was gone, Paris left with Helen. Some versions of the story say Helen fell in love with him. Others say Aphrodite influenced her mind. And some say Paris took her against her will. The ancient stories never give us one simple answer. But for the men preparing for war, the answer did not matter. Helen was gone, and Paris had taken her to Troy. Menelaus did not see it as a love story. He saw betrayal. His brother, Agamemnon, saw something more useful, an opportunity. Menelaus wanted his wife returned. Agamemnon wanted Troy brought to its knees. And now they had an oath that could force the kings of Greece to fight beside them. Soon, messengers traveled from kingdom to kingdom. Old promises were remembered. Ships were prepared. Weapons were sharpened. Men who had once competed for Helen were now ordered to sail across the sea to recover her. But not every hero wanted to go. One man pretended to have lost his mind. Another was hidden by his own mother. Because some of the greatest warriors in Greece already knew something the others did not. This war would make their names immortal. But many of them would never return home. The kings of Greece had sworn to defend Helen's marriage. But when the call to war arrived, some of the greatest heroes tried to escape it. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, had recently become a father. He had a wife, Penelope, a newborn son, Telemachus, and a kingdom he did not want to abandon for another man's war. So when Greek messengers arrived, Odysseus pretended to have lost his mind. He placed an ox and a donkey beneath the same plow. Then he began scattering salt across his fields instead of seed. To anyone watching, the king of Ithaca appeared completely insane. But one visitor was not convinced. Palamedes took the infant Telemachus and placed him directly in front of the moving plow. Stopped. He could continue pretending and kill his own son, or reveal that his madness was a lie. He turned the plow aside, and in that moment, his escape failed. Far away, another hero was also being hidden from the war. Achilles was the greatest young warrior in Greece, but his mother, Thetis, knew the prophecy surrounding him. If Achilles stayed away from Troy, he would live a long and peaceful life. His name, however, would eventually be forgotten. But if he sailed to Troy, he would become immortal in legend and die young. To protect him, Thetis disguised Achilles and hid him among the daughters of King Lycomedes on the island of Skyros. But the Greek army could not win without him, so Odysseus was sent to find him. Odysseus arrived disguised as a merchant. He placed jewelry, fabrics, and beautiful gifts before the women. But among them, he also placed a sword and a shield. Then, without warning, a war trumpet sounded outside. The women moved toward safety. Only one reached for the weapons. Achilles had revealed himself. Odysseus had been forced into the war. Achilles was offered a choice. He could remain hidden and grow old, or sail toward the death that would make his name eternal. Achilles chose Troy. Not because he believed the war was just, not because he cared about Helen, but because for him, being forgotten was more frightening than dying. Soon, more than 1,000 Greek ships gathered at Aulis. Kings, warriors, and soldiers waited to cross the sea. But the wind refused to rise. The fleet could not move. And the seer Calchas revealed the reason. The goddess Artemis had been offended. To receive the wind, Agamemnon would have to sacrifice someone from his own family. His daughter. Iphigenia. The war had not yet begun. No Trojan soldier had raised a weapon, and already the Greeks were preparing to kill one of their own. Agamemnon sent for his daughter Iphigenia. He told her she was coming to marry Achilles. It was a lie. She arrived dressed for a wedding and found an altar waiting for her. In some versions, Artemis saved her at the final moment. In others, Iphigenia died beneath her father's blade. But either way, the wind returned, and the Greek ships sailed for Troy. Before they landed, another prophecy spread through the fleet. The first Greek to step onto Trojan soil would also be the first to die. For a moment, no one moved. Then Patroclus jumped ashore. He was killed almost immediately. The Greeks had finally reached Troy, and the land welcomed them with a grave. They surrounded the city. They attacked its allies. They burned nearby towns and cut off supplies. But Troy's walls did not fall. 1 year became 5. 5 became 9. The men who had sailed for glory grew older beneath the same walls. Then, in the 10th year, the war changed. Not because the Trojans broke through the Greek lines, but because the two most powerful men in the Greek army turned against each other. Agamemnon commanded the army. Achilles was the reason it still survived. And when Agamemnon publicly dishonored him, Achilles stopped fighting. The greatest warrior in Greece laid down his weapons, and Troy was about to discover what happened when an army lost the man it needed most. The conflict began with a captive woman. A priest of Apollo came to the Greek camp and begged Agamemnon to return his daughter. Agamemnon refused. So Apollo sent a plague through the army. Men died every day. And when Achilles demanded that Agamemnon return the woman, the king finally agreed. But he refused to lose his prize without taking another. Agamemnon seized Briseis, the woman awarded to Achilles. It was not about love, it was about honor. In front of the entire army, Agamemnon had shown Achilles that even the greatest warrior could be humiliated by a king. Achilles nearly killed him. Instead, he made a more dangerous choice. He walked away. He ordered his soldiers, the Myrmidons, to stop fighting. Then he asked his mother Thetis to convince Zeus to let the Greeks suffer without him. And Zeus agreed. Without Achilles, the Greek lines began to collapse. Hector, prince of Troy, drove the invaders back across the battlefield. He broke through their defenses. He reached the Greek ships. For the first time in 10 years, Troy was close to victory. The Greeks begged Achilles to return. They offered wealth, gifts, and the return of Briseis. But Achilles refused. His wounded pride mattered more than the men dying outside his tent. Then his closest companion, Patroclus, saw the Greek ships beginning to burn. He could no longer watch. So he asked Achilles for his armor. If Achilles would not return to battle, perhaps the Trojans could be frightened into believing that he had. Achilles agreed. But he gave Patroclus one warning. Drive the Trojans away from the ships, then come back. Do not chase them to the walls of Troy. Patroclus put on the armor of Achilles, and when the Trojans saw him enter the battlefield, they believed the greatest warrior in Greece had returned. For a moment, the plan worked, but Patroclus did not turn back. Patroclus drove the Trojans away from the Greek ships, but instead of returning, he followed them toward the walls of Troy. There the god Apollo struck him from behind. His armor fell loose. Another warrior wounded him. Then Hector delivered the final blow. As Patroclus died, he gave Hector one warning. Achilles would come for him. When the news reached Achilles, his anger disappeared. Only grief remained. He fell beside the body of his friend, covered himself in dust, and cried so loudly that his mother heard him beneath the sea. Achilles had refused to fight because his honor had been wounded. Now the person closest to him was dead because of that decision. He could not undo it, but he could punish Hector. His old armor had been taken from Patroclus, so Thetis asked the god Hephaestus to forge new weapons for her son. The next morning, Achilles returned to the battlefield, and this time he was not fighting for Greece. He was fighting for revenge. The Trojans fled behind their walls, but Hector remained outside. His father called to him from the city. His mother begged him to come inside. Hector knew Achilles was stronger. He knew the gods had turned against him. But he also knew that he had led Troy into battle. He could not face his people if he ran. When Achilles approached, Hector's courage failed. He ran. 3 times the 2 warriors circled the walls of Troy. Then Athena appeared in disguise and convinced Hector to stop. He turned. He raised his spear and faced the man he knew would kill him. Hector asked Achilles to return his body to his family. Achilles refused. Then he drove his spear into Hector's neck. But death was not enough. Achilles tied Hector's body behind his chariot and dragged it through the dust beneath the walls of Troy. Hector's parents watched from above. So did his wife. Days later, King Priam entered the Greek camp alone. He knelt before Achilles. He kissed the hands that had killed his son and asked him to remember his own father. For the first time since Patroclus died, Achilles saw more than an enemy. He saw another grieving man. So he returned Hector's body, and for a few days the war stopped, while Troy buried its greatest defender. Hector was dead, but Troy did not fall. New allies came to defend the city. New warriors entered the battlefield, and Achilles continued killing them. He defeated Penthesilea, queen of the Amazons, then Memnon, a powerful prince who had come from the east. With every victory, Achilles moved closer to the fate his mother had warned him about. He would become immortal in legend, but he would not leave Troy alive. One day, Achilles chased the Trojans back toward the city gates. Paris watched from the walls. He was not the greatest warrior in Troy. He had rarely faced Achilles directly. But this time, he raised his bow, and Apollo guided the arrow. It struck Achilles in the one place where he could still be wounded, his heel. The greatest warrior in Greece fell before the city he had come to destroy. Achilles had chosen a short life with eternal glory. Now he had both. After his death, the Greeks argued over who should receive his armor. The 2 strongest claims came from Odysseus and Ajax. Ajax had carried Achilles' body away from the battlefield. He believed the armor belonged to him, but the Greek leaders awarded it to Odysseus. Not because Odysseus was stronger, but because he spoke more convincingly. Ajax saw the decision as another humiliation. That night, he lost control of his mind. He attacked a flock of animals, believing they were Greek commanders. When the madness passed and he understood what he had done, he could not live with the shame. Ajax fell on his own sword. Another great Greek hero was gone, not killed by Troy, but destroyed by wounded pride. Paris did not survive much longer. The Greeks brought Philoctetes back to the battlefield. He carried the bow of Heracles, and with one poisoned arrow, he mortally wounded the man whose choice had begun the war. Paris died, but Helen was not returned. Troy still refused to surrender. Hector was dead. Achilles was dead. Paris was dead. Ajax was dead. After 10 years, both armies had lost the men who once seemed impossible to replace. And still, the walls of Troy remained standing. The Greeks had tried strength, they had tried courage, they had tried sacrifice. None of it had been enough. So Odysseus proposed something different. Not another battle, not another hero. A lie large enough for an entire city to believe. The Greeks would build a wooden horse, then they would disappear. Odysseus understood what 10 years of war had proven. Troy could not be defeated from the outside, so the Greeks would enter from within. They built a gigantic wooden horse. Odysseus and a group of chosen warriors climbed inside. The rest burned their camp, boarded their ships, and sailed out of sight. Only one Greek remained behind, Sinon. When the Trojans found him, Sinon claimed the Greeks had abandoned him. He told them the horse was an offering to Athena. It had been built so large, he said, because the Greeks feared the Trojans might carry it into their city. If they did, Athena would protect Troy. It was exactly what the Trojans wanted to hear, but not everyone believed him. Laocoon, a Trojan priest, warned the crowd. He threw his spear into the horse. The wood shook, and the hidden soldiers remained silent. Then 2 enormous serpents rose from the sea. They wrapped themselves around Laocoon and his sons, and killed them before the city. The Trojans saw this as punishment from the gods, a warning not to harm the horse. But Cassandra understood the truth. She had been cursed to see the future and never be believed. She begged them to burn the horse. She told them Troy would fall before morning. They called her mad. So the Trojans opened their gates. When the horse proved too large, they broke part of their own wall to bring it inside. The city filled with celebration. Music echoed through the streets. Wine was poured. After 10 years, the people finally believed they had survived. But the Greek fleet had not gone home. It was waiting beyond the horizon. And inside the horse, Odysseus was waiting for Troy to fall asleep. Late that night, Troy finally became silent. The celebrations ended, the streets emptied, and inside the wooden horse, the Greeks began to move. Odysseus and the hidden warriors climbed down. They killed the guards, opened the city gates, and signaled the Greek fleet waiting beyond the horizon. The army returned under the cover of darkness. Troy had resisted them for 10 years. Now its walls were useless. The enemy was already inside. Greek soldiers moved through the streets. Homes were burned. Temples were attacked. Men who had survived years of battle were killed in their sleep. King Priam was murdered near the altar of Zeus. The royal family was destroyed. The women of Troy were taken as prisoners. Cassandra had warned them that this night would come. Now she watched her city burn, knowing the truth had saved no one. By morning, Troy was gone. Its towers had fallen. Its palaces were burning. And the city that had survived 10 years of war had been destroyed in a single night. Menelaus found Helen. The woman whose disappearance had been used to begin the war was taken back to Greece. But thousands of people were already dead. Achilles would never return. Hector would never see his son grow. Agamemnon would sail home to a family poisoned by what he had done. And Odysseus would soon discover that reaching Troy had been easier than leaving it behind. The Greeks had won, but their victory did not bring peace. It brought ruined families, burned cities, and journeys home filled with punishment. The Trojan War began with a promise of beauty. It ended with a city in flames. Perhaps that is the real tragedy of Troy. Not that so many people died for one woman, but that pride kept the war alive long after everyone had forgotten how to stop it. And if victory costs you everything you hoped to protect, can it still be called victory?